This is Justice's Waiting Room. This is a daily live podcast where we discuss news and politics. Okay, so at least we're showing up as online today. That's a step in the right direction. Morning. All right. You can hear me? Sweet. So, first things first, wasn't there supposed to be. Hey, good morning. I put a war in a link in the chat. Crazily enough. So, this is still working, huh? So, wild. By the way, look at what my dog did to me. You can see the marks here. Edmund was trying to he was sitting down in front of me and he's never done this. Like clearly you've seen me for months and I've never had like big scratches on my face, but he literally tried to pull my face to his while he was sitting in front of me. He just like reached up and just tried to grab my face and pull it towards him. Um, so it's definitely a crazy way to wake up. We saw yesterday in sort of this regime's fascist fashion, uh, Elon Musk entered the Institute for Peace, and they got the police called on him only for the police to let him in. Yeah, we knew that when days before rebates expired, 400 Teslas were sold across like four dealerships. It was like 1.5 Teslas per hour or something. And not only is that statistically impossible, uh, it takes way longer than that to sell a car. I worked in car sales. I've bought multiple new cars over the course of my life. It takes longer than an hour and a half. That's for sure. There's a process. Um, so yeah, I'm glad to hear that they're being investigated. That was like a no-brainer. I think it was like 400 Teslas in a 9-hour period or something like that. I don't know that this is much of a story. 8,600 over a weekend. Jeez. Oh man. Donald Trump yesterday revoked the Secret Service protection for Joe Biden's kids, presumably to go after um, Hunter Biden, um, which again is just an attempt to keep him out of office. Um, hmm. I just can't imagine waking up every day and this is what you want to do. That's one of the things that about this. 1,000% free Mahmoud Khalil Lacacordia. Remember that fundamentally your freedom of speech, you know, I think Donald Trump has entered into a place where when you defy a court order and you are deporting people anyway, especially the people that they deported to El Salvador, to watch them get, yeah. Well, he's dementia. He's got dementia. You know, there's a reason that he's trying to put tariffs on one day and taking them off the next is because day to day, it's like Groundhog Day. You know what I mean? Every day he wakes up, it's the same. He finds out too late that you did that shit yesterday. And so he has to walk back the shit he did yesterday because he doesn't know what else to do, right? But yeah, you know how I say, like, I always look for signs? There were a couple that were on the right path. Marsha Blackburn out of Tennessee has filed a bill to make it illegal for federal workers to file and join a union. Um, I've been saying since I started researching socialism, what kind of socialist are you? Um, One of the things that I learned along the way is that there are like 18 flavors of socialism. And if you do all of the research, you find out that one of them, one type of socialism, is alive and well, and it's called syndicalism. And it's pretty easy to explain, okay? Because I know that if you're ascribing to what I'm talking about, we want to make sure we clearly define socialism so that no one is confused as to what a socialist is. And you should be able to say this loud and proud because it's the easiest shit ever. A socialist is, or better yet, socialism is, and I'm not reading anything. No notes. I could do it with my fucking eyes closed. A socialist is any egalitarian. So the first big word you come to in the very definition of socialism is egalitarian. And people are stupid, right? Egalitarian just means pro equality. There's no like better way to say it than succinct, right? Pro equality. That's what egalitarian means. So you could just kind of X out egalitarian and put pro equality in its place. Any pro equality movement, and when we talk about movements, we talk about social movements, political movements, economic movements, theories, okay, that have like a couple specific components. So keep in mind, if it's not pro equality, it's not socialist, right? So that's the part of the problem with the Democratic Party is that they're not pro equality. They frequently don't stand up for their LGBTQIA plus friends and family members and people of color, right? There are still like centrists that are like racist and Democrat, right? It's still like very much a thing. Okay. So off the rip, socialism is any pro equality, social, economic, political theory that has to do with seizing the means of production, social ownership of business. Okay. And then you got to kind of make the components of socialism mean something to people. If you just told someone that like socialism has like components to it and like you just said seize the means of production, do you think anything's going to happen? No. People don't fucking know what seizing the means of fucking production means. Anyway, I just want to do that. Okay. So I could talk about that shit fucking blindfolded. I'm out looking at notes. I didn't write shit down. You ought to be able to do that too. Okay. So when you talk about what is seizure of the means of production, well, in today's modern terms, the only way that the people are going to seize the means of production is via a union. So on the one hand, you have Donald Trump's administration, Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, filing anti-union legislation. Okay. And then understand, hey, I'm also willing to hit on things that Democrats do that are anti-union. Remember when Joe Biden got elected? Good morning. And first came into office. Joe Biden turned on the railroad union. Okay? And again, if you're pro union, you never turn your back on union leadership because then you fuck up your relationships with all these unions, and these union heads are working for large groups of people and they get to speak in front of large groups of people. So if you ever wonder why unions, Jared? Why unions? Because one, half of the electorate is anti-union because they don't understand what unions are for. Hell, one of the things that I've learned in my life, you want to talk about like one of those things you learn in your life that's super fucking disappointing? Um, One of my friends that I made since I came home from the Marine Corps is a union rep for drivers, for people that deliver beverage. Okay. And he said every meeting that they have, and this is fucking years ago, this is more than a decade ago. Every meeting they had, if you ask the people that attend the meeting, okay, what did we talk about at our union meeting today? He said 90% of the people couldn't even tell you what we talked about. They weren't really paying attention. They were just fucking there. Okay. So, one of the things that I would implore you to do is don't just be a part of the audience. You ought to be able to take what I'm telling you here and you ought to be able to turn around and say that to someone else. Hey, I happen to know someone that's building the American Socialist Party, a pro equality, pro union workers' party, right? With an actual platform where we want universal income, universal housing, universal health care, universal education. And why should we get those things? That's one of the questions people have is why should we get those things? And I would say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so There are examples of each of these things. First of all, if you serve in the US military, okay? If you're on active duty in the US military, you get universal health care. You don't pay for that. You get universal housing. You don't pay for that either. Okay? You you do get paid. You do have to go to work, although they can't not pay you once you're in. Um they could kick you out though. Say all that shit. You get the GI Bill. You do have to pay out for that, but you pay like $1,200 into that, and then you get the benefit. So it's like you get the money back, right? So other than that, people will say like, well, you know, military is only for certain people. True, true, true. But did you know in 33 of 34 developed countries they have universal health care? Did you also know that in 34 of 34 developed countries the same healthcare companies are thriving? So if you wondered, can businesses like healthcare companies still make money in countries that have socialized medicine? Yeah, yeah, uh-huh, they can. So that means if it can happen in another country, it can happen here, right? That's not a big leap, okay? So whenever someone says like, "Oh, we can't have universal healthcare," why? What billionaire healthcare executive are you defending? Or do you even know them? No? That's one of the things that people do that drives me fucking crazy is defend billionaires, right? Like, no, stop defending them. Um, but yeah, so the American Socialist Party built on the foundation of being pro-equality with the goal of removing this two-tier justice system. You know, we want to see everyone penalized the same regardless of your net worth. And that isn't how this works in the United States. I don't believe that he's right, but man, do I feel like he's close. Where Donald Trump said like I could literally end someone's life on Fifth Avenue and no one would blink. And I think that he's dangerously close to just being exactly that. Like just being able to do whatever the fuck he wants with no consequences. Um, yeah. Sorry. Uh, when you look at the news here, I think that Donald Trump said that he was going to end the fighting in Gaza, and that is not happening as Israel hits Gaza with extensive strikes, killing over 400 people, and ultimately, yep, yep. And again, one of the very rare, I've been talking to people on the phone from my house for the last 5 years, but for about the last decade, I have uh, talked to people on the phone. And only one time can I recall someone saying, I wouldn't want free healthcare. And I say something like, why would you want to pay for it? And they say, well, the healthcare in the United States is bad. You're like, oh, it is? Oh. And you pay for that? And they say, yeah. Well, how much do you pay for that? Oh, like $572 a month. I'll never forget that conversation. And you don't want free healthcare? I mean, $572 a month. If I told you that I could just put that back in your pocket, you might need it. You might blow a tire. Them shit's expensive. All you have to do at any level of government is just make it publicly known. Run for public office, win public office, make it publicly known that I support universal health care. I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think that people want to harm me because I want you to have universal health care. I don't want your family to get torn apart because of medical debt, like we've watched happen. Basically, all our lives are on full display all day, every day because of the internet now. And so now, like, you literally get to see people. Like I said, I've only ever had one conversation, having talked on the phone for a decade, 5 years talking on the phone just about healthcare, and only ever met one person that was like, nah, I'll just keep paying for it. And I was like, why? It sucks. Like, that would be like going to the car dealership and them telling you the worst car is this one and it also costs the most. This car doesn't even require gas. It's brand new, costs less, it's safer. The problem as the consumer when there's money involved is that your quality of care will always be in question. Ask me how I know this. Okay? I helped people with their health care, and you learn very quickly the people that have money have better healthcare experiences. People that don't have money have poor healthcare experiences because they're sick and they can't pay to get out of the position they're in. And I understand that that's by design. That's the way they built it. Good to go. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of universal health care. Like, what if we just put that money in your pocket? And I also want to point out the social economic theory suggests that rent, interest, and tax are all derivative of your labor and need to be eliminated. So think about all the tax you pay and look what it's going toward, right? Look who's 80 cents out of every dollar in tax you pay goes to Elon Musk. But what about what else is there, right? Well, I think that there are a lot of healthcare is a business and not a right. I disagree with that. I think healthcare is a human right. Yep. It's again a very much a rich versus poor thing. What's crazy, Fusion, is that I'm a disabled veteran and I get healthcare through the VA, and that's not a business. And it's a right that I have. I just want to point that out. So while what you're saying is healthcare is a business and not a right, right? Not to everyone. Mostly true, just not universally true. But I mean, I do that exercise with everyone on the phone every day. I gather all their information and then I say, okay, look, you make $3,000 a month and you spend $1,500 a month. Yeah, yeah. Spending $1,500 a month on credit cards and payday loans and personal loans. And first of all, I couldn't afford to live like that if I was spending half my income on loans. Um, and I tell them 80% of the money that you spend every month is going towards interest. Okay. So you got to think if you're paying out $1,500 a month, $1,200 of that's going towards interest. You're buying some dude's yacht. And wouldn't you rather put, 1,000 or more dollars a month in your pocket, save it for a rainy day, and be out of debt in the next few years instead of several years? And again, I will end up meeting one person. I'll meet one person that says, actually, I would rather keep the boot on my neck. I'll hold myself down, thank you very much, Jared, and just hangs up. But I haven't met that person yet. You know what I mean? And I love when people say, like, oh, countries that have universal health care have long wait times. And it's actually when healthcare is not for profit, people only go to the hospital when they're sick. And so the reason there are wait times is because when you have less sick people, you need less healthcare workers. If doctors were not held to a profit model and doctors were held to a treatment model, your treatment would be different, but you're held to a profit model. The doctor's job is to find something to prescribe you something, something. But yeah, housing should not be for profit. Yeah. One of the things that I do is often I look at how many empty houses there are in the United States. And I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. But I wanted to say there's something along the lines of 700,000 homeless people in the United States. Good morning. And I saw why. Didn't nothing to do with whether or not you're insured. What has nothing to do with whether or not you're insured? But there's something like 3.5 million empty homes and 700,000 homeless people. So there's 5 times the empty housing that there are homeless people. I think I can solve your housing problem, right? I think one of the ways that we can do that is we should create a legal loophole that allows people to build multiple residential units on their land, as if it's your land. Oh, hey, and Crystal, for the record, I can't really speak on the profit model for healthcare from personal experience because I'm a disabled veteran. I've only ever gone to the VA. But I will tell you this. Uh, I have many times gone to the doctor, told them what was going on, and never seen that fucking person again, and never heard anything back about our conversation. And that's always been something that has troubled me about healthcare. And then I'll meet with someone, they'll be my doctor for years. But again, I'm only seeing a doctor like once a year. Good morning, good morning. Oh, and by the way, people are saying uh Donald Trump won a mandate and more than half of this country is conservative. And I just wanted to point out that Midas Touch has doubled up Joe Rogan. They're twice as popular on a downloads basis, on a views basis. Yeah, I was gonna say, don't you triage in order of severity, and it has nothing to do with insurance at all? But yeah, I don't think she was specifically talking about the ER. Everybody's got their own opinions and thoughts and feelings about healthcare. I can't really speak to much of the profit model or the insurance model because I'm a disabled vet, so I've never had to show a card. But I have been into the ER, and I'm pretty sure they treat on severity. So, and again, it's usually based off pre-diagnosis too, so they can only take symptoms from the uh, patient, I guess. Dang. You know who was like the wrong person to pick on, the wrong country to pick on was Canada. So Canada, obviously they're thinking about stopping electricity to the United States, but also they had ordered F-35s jets. They're thinking about canceling that. They're obviously gonna tariff us back, right? Toronto excludes Tesla from EV incentive due to US trade war. Canada's Carney said Trump must stop comments before bilateral talks can stop. Um, Ontario and Toronto moved to ban US contractors. Canada's weighing cut F-35. New York Times link I posted doesn't work already. Is that even possible? So I use yeah, the link doesn't work. Nuts. Yeah. Mark Carney calls Canada the most European of non-European countries. Oh my gosh. Oh, and this I saw yesterday. Um, one of the things that kind of bothered me coming off the election morning was that oh, that's not what I was trying to share. One of the things that bothered me coming off the election because things haven't happened yet, Crystal. People will be out in the fucking streets in a heartbeat the moment there's at Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, anything gets actually touched. But here's the problem that I've noticed, okay? You know how they say it's hard for people to develop empathy until things directly affect them. The problem I keep again dumb statistics in my brain, okay? So I can't remember what it's called. It could just be called a cattle prod, okay? But if I remember correctly, these things were banned literally because it was like a baton. So it was like think of like a lightsaber, right? But you could reach out and jab something with some electricity. Think of it like a yeah, like a taser on a stick. Okay, like a security baton, right? Like a cop would have, and except you could jab someone with it and electrocute them. Okay, so if I remember this story correctly, okay, this guy like invented these things, okay, and eventually the guy original person that was producing this company goes out of business because they were getting fucking sued. Why were they being fucking sued? And I want you to honestly think about what I'm talking about. Foot and a half long object, electric fucking coming off the fucking ends. Okay? You can use it on cattle. Okay? They use it to correct. From what I understand, they still exist. People still use them. Much lower voltage, apparently. And generally, it's used to steer cattle. It's not meant to be something you hurt people with. But the guy said, okay, this guy had invented this fucking thing that he had to stop selling the shit and shut his business down and kept getting sued because motherfuckers were doing the shit to themselves. Okay? So the whole point of telling that fucking story was the guy that invented those had to stop selling them and shut down his fucking company because he's getting fucking sued because motherfuckers were sticking themselves with a cattle prod. And he had to sell the template, sell his fucking idea to somebody who could afford the fucking right. And eventually, of course, like nowadays, they're much lower voltage, and you could even jab yourself, and it won't happen. But for some reason, you hit a fucking cow or a sow or a steer, and it's gonna woo. Okay, so and keep in mind, this goes in the same line of vein. There's a reason that under normal circumstances, if we weren't living under a fascist, authoritarian dictatorship, kleptocracy, oligarchy, or whatever the fuck you want to call this shit, okay? If we weren't living under this regime, I would be anti gun. And here's why. Along the same lines with the guy that invents the cattle prod. And again, that story doesn't even have to be true, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Okay, the guy that invents it was making them himself and making fuck a load of money. He's charging like $250 a fucking stick, and eventually had to sell it and let somebody mass produce it at a much lower voltage, so much lower that nowadays you can even jab yourself with it and nothing happens. Okay, but they did that for a fucking reason. Okay, it's the same reason that I'm not really pro gun. First of all, when it comes to the Second Amendment, if you're able to read, the purpose of the Second Amendment is so that you could rise up over a tyrannical government, which, for the record, uh, it's here. So, where if ever there were a good use for the Second Amendment, it has arrived. And you see about how good a gun is right now. What's a gun doing? Not a goddamn thing. Okay. Um, Normally I would be anti-gun. And the reason is because of the math, not because of my pussy opinion. Okay? The math says 57% of gun deaths, and you can look me up, Department of Justice, and this is pretty much an annual statistic. So if you want to back me up on this, go to the Department of Justice website, look up gun statistics, and look up self-inflicted gunshots. And what percentage of gun deaths are self inflicted? And the answer is 57%. So you're almost 60% likely to brain yourself by having like a firearm. There's a reason that there's a reason that I'm not like pro gun. There's a reason I don't have a gun. There's a reason that you'll never hear me speak on pistol talk. I don't do that shit. Why? Because I've put rounds downrange. I've shot all them fucking guns. This shit doesn't do anything for me. I know for some people it gets your fucking pussy wet or your dick hard or whatever, right? But for me, it reminds me of the awesome power of human ingenuity. Look what we can do when we really put our mind to something. Like we created devastating firepower. It's fucking incredible. And it's also absolutely motherfucking worthless 99.9% of the time. I can promise you, as some scared young man that had a gun on my hip from the time I was like 18, 19 years old till I was goddamn 30 years old. Now, keep in mind, I worked armed and unarmed security and bartended and, you know what I mean, hung out in strange crowds and shit for a long ass time. And I was carrying 100%. As a scared ass white boy, 100%. And I met my wife and I sold my fucking pistol. And even when I bought my house and I went back and I thought I ought to protect us, I ought to get us a gat, I couldn't even make myself do it. Because you realize at some point, you get to some point in your life, and I think it was home ownership for me. And it was like, I have 4 dogs and 2 cats, and 3 of my dogs are pit bulls. What the fuck do I need a pistol for? I'm mostly just going to hurt myself with it. If I'm being truthfully honest. And it's because I don't feel like I'm in danger anymore. Because I'm not in that line of work anymore. I'm not in that environment anymore. I work from home. I play with my dogs. Most people are like me. Most people are not in violent situations or violent areas or in questionable company all day, every day. And as someone that worked in those environments, you would be surprised how frequently that pistol wasn't doing me any good right here. That pistol's not saving my life right now. There have been many a time where I wished for a multi-tool. To be completely honest with you, there have been many a time I've reached and put my hand on my gun and been like, "Oh shit. You know what I need? I need a fucking Leatherman." I know that sounds fucking lame. I know there's people that are going to be like, what can you not shoot off that a Leatherman needs to peel off? Okay. That's the environment I fucking grew up in, bro. Like it was the Wild Wild West. Motherfuckers lock their keys in their car, put a fucking round through the fucking glass to get their fucking door unlocked. Right? Or my buddy locked his keys in his truck that he just got tinted and had to shoot multiple rounds actually through the glass because it was tempered and also tinted. So it just webbed when he shot it instead of like collapsing and breaking. So again, I just want to point out before you run out and get yourself a gat, it's useless. And here's why I'll tell you that. You know how Donald Trump and Elon Musk are druggies, who do you think's like a Trump supporter that's gonna like do you harm? And then I want you to take that information and think about the Nazis during World War II and their love of amphetamines and how shooting somebody with a pistol doesn't solve your problem when they're attacking you. When they're doped up on amphetamine. So there's a another reason that I'm like not I don't do the pistol thing. Now, if you're talking about home defense, I've told you, you probably need fucking body armor before you ever think about picking up a firearm. You probably would rather have a riot shield if you really thought about it. When you're talking about defending yourself from your home, you need something you can hide behind that they can put rounds into and it's not necessarily going to hit or hurt you before you ever even think about firing back. And then I've been telling people Mossberg, Bellini, they make plenty. And I may always make that Fortnite joke, right? I always feel super vulnerable, right? Super fucking vulnerable, even in Fortnite, unless I get a pump and I know where I'm putting that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? I know where them rounds are going. Good to go. So the thing about a shotty, a long barrel shotgun, is that you can't fucking kill yourself with that. Ask me how I know. I tried. Okay. So, hey, S&M, juggalos are your friends. What's MTN? Oh, Midas Touch? Yeah, I saw they're twice as popular as Joe Rogan. Good for them. The only thing that bothers me is the Jessica Denson thing. So, for those that don't know, Jessica Denson used to work for Midas Touch. After the election, Midas Touch, want to say it was mutual. I want to say they mutually parted ways. And she struck out on her own, has spent a whole bunch of time talking about election concerns. And I don't blame people for getting their concealed carry permit, especially people that don't look like me. You know, I don't know if I've said this to y'all before, but I was looking at all the executive orders that had to do with veterans. And I think I said this past weekend. I can't imagine being a cancer patient, veteran that's gay and black right now because Donald Trump is fucking attacking gay, black, veteran with cancer, right? They're getting rid of cancer research. They're trying to privatize VA healthcare, make veterans pay for it. Well, S&M, they are. That's the thing about juggalos. Oh man, the great Malenko. You gotta know. If you don't know, you gotta know. Hey, I tell you what, the most I worked music festivals. S&M, you got to understand this. Your boy, when I came home for the Marine Corps, you know how if you watch oh, what's that fucking movie where the guy gets out of the service and he joins SWAT? What's that fucking movie called? Um I think Freddie Prinze Jr. is in it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where the guy gets out of the military and he joins SWAT. That's like kind of the line of work. That's where your boy was headed. Okay? And dead ass 2 years removed from the military and I was being paid and not necessarily flown places, just getting money in advance to work security at music festivals. And I worked all over Indiana, for the record, and Ohio, and fucking Pennsylvania, and fucking upstate New York, and fucking out west, and went all over the United States as stage security. So not the guy walking around the parking lot with a flashlight being a dickhead wannabe cop. No, I was like right next to the stage. Like when Lil Wayne was here, I was actually working security at the fucking uh dubstep festival, the electronic music festival at the campgrounds across the street. Okay? So I technically was not even working at Deer Creek where Lil Wayne was performing across the street. And for the record, I helped carry the speakers in for the electronic music festival, and I remember telling them when we were setting the shit up, "Oh, we're going to get visited by whoever is really into music at this at the concert across the street because of the sound quality coming out of this electronic music festival." And for the record, on my motherfucking mama, the first act played. The first act played. Keep in mind the opening act on a fucking Friday at a fucking music festival is not your headliner. He's like the new guy. I'm pretty sure he was a new guy. He only had like 9 shows before this. Okay? And that's not to say he didn't get up there and shit wasn't lit. I didn't say he wasn't banging. He actually did really good, and he also got a guest set the next day, and he did even better the next day because he wasn't as nervous, and it was fucking awesome because I was like his homie. Okay. And now he's like famous. Okay. The first act played on the Friday of this electronic music festival, and Wheezy is across the street. Wheezy himself drove himself on a fucking golf cart, crossed a fucking road, came to the music festival to check out the sound. He appreciated the sound quality. He stuck around for like opening acts and watched opening acts. Like he was watching people and he come and he'd be like, "Hey man, who is this?" And I'd be like, "Oh, this Gabby, you know. Who the fuck is Gabby?" Oh, Gabby's a female DJ. She was dating Ron Miner. Rest in peace, Ron Miner. Who's another famous DJ from here. Oh, is he a white boy? Yeah, he's a white boy. He's cool as fuck though. Oh, okay, cool. And he was just like, "Who's this person?" Like, and he was there for a good 90 minutes and left, and because he had a fucking show to do. Well, what happened was the golf cart came back with their security on it, and I got to go up there onto the stage, and I stood about 50 feet, 75 feet from Wheezy from the side stage at Deer Creek and watched him perform. And he came out and dapped me up after it was over, and I went back over to the music festival. People were not happy with me. I was supposed to be working security at the music festival and hanging out with all my friends, and I abandoned them and went across the street to stand side stage and watch Wheezy perform for like an hour and a half. For the record, it was great. Um, but in addition to that, okay, that was the people I hung out with mostly. Um, uh, Electronic music stuff because the vibes were good, right? People were just trying to have a nice time, not really going too fast, too slow, not quite a mosh pit, not like a bunch of zombies. Um, but yeah, um, so ask me anything about concerts and I can fucking tell you because I have tried as hard as I can to preserve my hearing because I have tinnitus. Because when I was on active duty, I was in the infantry during a time of war. I went through a whole workup. I went on a boat. I was aboard the USS Baton for the 26 Mu. That is a deployment. I just don't talk about it like that because I'm not no fucking war hero and I'm not trying to like dick measure or impress anyone. But I say all that shit to say I had to start protecting my hearing while I was on active duty because of the fucking sound. Okay. And I literally had plugs in my ears, and when I wasn't required to wear my fucking flak and Kevlar and shit, I had over the ear uh, earphones on to try to preserve my hearing as much as possible, knowing that I was losing that, and then the damage was done. Just so everyone knows, my shit rings all the time, and if I fucking pay attention to it, I'll lose my mind. So there's a reason why I have jobs where I can talk, because when I can talk, I can't hear my ears ringing. It's just way your brain works. Like I'm not a big fan of multitasking. People are confident they can multitask, and I'm like, yeah, try tinnitus plus anything else. Okay. First simple plan. I'm so nice. Everything. Mm-hmm. Jelly roll. I was annoying, freaked out. I was selling Percocets there. It was wild. I was livid. Yeah. I've never understood like a legal drug dealer being like an illicit drug dealer. I never understood it. As a big, always been a big hip hop fan. Always been a like alternative slash rock and roll fan. I did grow up on country music. It just didn't grow up with me. I actually can honestly tell you, full bore, had not heard new country music until Chris Stapleton worked with Justin Timberlake, and then I kind of dipped my toe in, and there were a couple artists that were modern country artists that I got into. Um, but then the whole shit has happened with Joe Rogan. And you got to understand, for a long time, I wouldn't say I was a Joe Rogan fan. I was a fan of the Joe Rogan podcast. I've always felt like podcasts are cool as fuck. Um, and for the record, I didn't feel any ill will towards Joe Rogan. It, nor would I have told you I'm not a fan of his until um the guy from direct this the fucking space guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Dr. Tyson, I believe. That podcast episode, in my eyes, it shined a bright light on Joe Rogan and his ignorance. And it was such a bright light that it almost disrespected the show, and it changed forever my behavior pattern as it refers to the Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan experience. It was just like I was off it after it was just something about it. And I encourage other people to go back and watch Joe Rogan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and come tell me what you see, hear, feel after you watch their first sit down. Um, I remember it like it was yesterday. I never come off someone so fast as I did. And again, you got to understand that that has a ripple effect. Are any of you familiar with? And I'm talking to multiple generations. Have any of you read anything about the butterfly effect? It probably has a better name. Do any of you know what that is? It's kind of I want to say in Gladiator, he says the things we do in this like life echo for an eternity. My chat is dead. There's 21 people in here and nobody's talking. I'm trying to figure out if no. Okay, so the butterfly effect. Harambe death was the butterfly effect. Ah. Um So the butterfly effect, to say your decisions have an impact on your reality. Like the things you do now has a effect on what happens in the futures. Okay. No, no, no. I'm not upset about it, Zeke. It didn't bother me one way or another. But it's like a meme, right? Harambe's death was butterfly effect. Like there was an impact after that. I just don't know that it made like zoos safer or anything. So necessarily it was a butterfly effect. But watching Joe Rogan interview Neil deGrasse Tyson after I had been watching the Joe Rogan Experience for years. You got to understand, Joe Rogan was cool for a time. He was the guy on MMA. He was a stand-up guy. His buddies were famous comedians. He was having doctors and scientists and talking about fucking mushroom and weed, and you know what I mean, like he was interesting and different. um because like they don't live under normal societal norms. You know, when you watch a doctor's podcast, for example, or you watch a lawyer's podcast, um you have a certain expectation of decorum. And what I had gotten from Joe Rogan before the interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, I had got Joe Rogan is the dummy along for the ride. Not necessarily contributing to the conversation. It's kind of like he's a taxi driver in the conversation. That what the conversation really is the guest using Joe Rogan to ultimately be fact checked by Jamie, is what I felt like it was. Did you hear what I said? What I perceived the Joe Rogan Experience was the guest using Joe Rogan to make Jamie fact check me. Was kind of what the experience. And then when Neil deGrasse Tyson was on there, I just didn't get the same vibe. And I don't know that it was a black thing. Although in hindsight, you're like, could have definitely been the fact that he's black. But I think it was more that the fact that he's a fucking scientist and a doctor, and he's a, in terms of human beings, it's like, well, I don't know. If you've watched Joe Rogan's stand up comedy, in your head, you're like, there are thousands of better comedians that are alive right now than that, especially the one from Denver. If you watch the one from Denver right around COVID, you're just like, who? Like this guy got an awful lot of hype for some trash jokes. I'm just throwing this out there. You know who should be Joe Rogan? Yeah, bookshelves and daydreams. The air from a butterfly's wing can cause tsunamis on the other side of the earth. Yeah, the and I likened it to the saying by Leonidas: "What we do in this life echoes for an eternity." Um, So yeah, for the record, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh my God, this guy, the guy that founded the American Socialist Party, used to be a Joe Rogan fan." No, no, no. I was a fan of the podcast for years. Uh huh. It was very interesting. It got it got suddenly uninteresting. And again, years before he was involved in any politics. And one of the reasons is that he became a shill, and that's one of the things that I try to avoid. There's a reason I don't put up my pay me links and shit like that. I'm not begging y'all for money. Is because I don't want to ever be seen in even in the same vein um, as someone like. Hey, and it's good. It's good to pay no mind. Right? There are certainly people out there that are not talented enough for your attention. And I think that ultimately Joe Rogan falls into that category where for most people he's not talented enough to even Zeke, what you understand what I was gonna say is, you know who should have been Joe Rogan? Neil Brennan. Or I'd even take Bill Burr. You know, Bill Burr should have been Joe Rogan. But Neil Brennan, the guy that helped write fucking Chappelle's show, should have been Joe Rogan. And I get it. Joe Rogan's like more famous, man. Hmm. Yeah. And again, I'm a comedian journalist. You know what I mean? So when I got into doing stand up, you go to a house party with comedians and they're talking about Joe Rogan. Did you watch Joe Rogan's podcast? Right? It was a regular conversation I had when, and you can ask my wife when we were involved in comedy. People would literally come up to us at a comedy club, "Did you see Joe Rogan's podcast?" And it was just like, "Whoa. No, like I'm off him. I'm not watching that shit." Why? Well, the thing I've noticed is that he fact checks the guest. He doesn't get fact checked. That's what I kind of noticed is like he was starting to get away with shit on his own show, and it just take you off somebody. That's how I would explain it. Cuz the thing about it was, once it came to the whole, like, you remember how Elon Musk is like a CEO of a company, and he's smoking weed on Joe Rogan's podcast? And I thought, I'll never be a founder of a company that becomes a IPO. You know what I mean? I'll never get here. But I can't imagine all the work involved, all the people involved that it takes. And I know I'm sound like I'm pandering to capitalism, but I swear to God I'm not. But all the people it takes to build a business up to the point where you become valuable, where you become publicly traded. And for the CEO to be sitting on Joe Rogan's podcast smoking a fucking blunt, as a daily weed smoker, couldn't be me. Actually would have had a problem doing that as a fucking CEO of a publicly traded company. Why? Because that publicly traded company probably employs thousands of fucking people whose livelihoods depend on that stock price. And if that stock price tanks because you're a dumbass making bad decisions on the fucking internet, oh, look at me now. By the way, I just want to point all this out. Many, many moons ago, when Elon Musk went on a Joe Rogan's podcast and smoked fucking weed, I was like, that's fucking dumb. Like, hey, you got to realize the people that are buying and trading stocks see that kind of shit as a red flag. I didn't say I'm on their team, right? There's a reason. You know what I saw that was alarming to me? Are you ready for this shit? Because I'm a football coach. Okay. Do you know what is becoming increasingly popular on football teams in the United States? You are not going to believe this shit. Do you know what's becoming popular on football teams? Jeff R. Curry. Baptism. The weirdest shit you ever heard in your fucking life. Now, I get it. I get it. There are some football programs that have chaplains. There's football programs that are deeply religious. Yes, fucking baptisms. 22-year-olds getting fucking baptized on the football team is becoming a thing. It's particularly a thing in red states in the South. It particularly is aimed at black boys. But yeah, I wish we could have had a podcast from George Carlin. Fuck yeah. Yes, yes. And again, one of the things that I'll remember as someone who studies history is the lie that the black male is dangerous and must be contained. Remember? That's what we were taught growing up. And so how does that matriculate? How does that like manifest itself? How about college football coaches doing fucking baptisms? How about college football teams doing fucking baptisms on their players? I would have loved to have like a I don't see my flavor of comedian is a little different because I go George Carlin, Bill Hicks, Doug Stanhope, um, kind of the darker sort of, you know what I'm saying, like not really fun famous comedians. You know, obviously Eddie Murphy, Delirious, probably one of the best of all time. Obviously, I'm a Dave Chappelle fan, but when I when one of the best fucking stories I've ever heard in my life, and if you need a hardcore laugh today, and a lot of people probably do need a hardcore laugh today, Doug Stanhope has a bit. It's a bit that he does on one of his albums about killing his mom. Probably the funniest shit you've ever heard in your entire life is Doug Stanhope. His mom, I believe his mom died of terminal cancer. So she was gonna die anyway. And it's just a great bit. And it's not true. But yeah, Doug Stanhope's great. Bill Hicks was great. George Carlin's great. Like I said, Eddie Murphy's Delirious, probably one of the best that's ever. If you, I mean, you really think about stand up. Jeff Dunham, George Carlin, yeah. Oh yeah. George Lopez. He was really funny back in the day. He was on TV all the time. But yeah, I think I posted that link. Uh, Russia's economy's in a free fall. That's a good thing in terms of where we are right now. You need that. And yeah, in case anybody wondered, like our protein. And to re-listen to the live. Yeah. We kind of had an off kilter live today. There's not a lot of news. Um, I guess this is sort of news. Here's MS-13 Javier Roman Bardales, uh, alleged leader of the MS-13 gang on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. So, hell yeah. Um, oh, I saw this last night before I went to bed. So here is interesting. Vladimir Zelensky is being invited by Canada's new prime minister to the G7 summit in June. And just so everyone understands what the G7 is, okay? Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, and United States. And it also used to formerly hold Russia. Okay, the European Union is also a member. Okay. Yeah, I think it's big. I mean, think about what else is in June. And I know there's going to be people that are like, "Oh, come on, like anything's going to fucking happen." Don't forget that I said Mark Root is being hailed as the Trump whisperer who told Trump while he was at the White House, "You should visit The Hague in June." Also in June, the G7 has invited Ukraine. Hey, just reading the news. Yeah. So I get it. Shit's dark. Uh I want to can I need to say it so, it keeps me from going into a fucking panic attack. But Donald Trump is not an effective leader, and the things that he's done since he's been in office, all these presidential orders and executive orders are largely not going to pass. And I know people say shit like, Jared, Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about a judge's orders. And it's like, right. Until he defies an order, which he just did. Okay. They super pissed that he's not deporting more people than Obama. So I know shit is fucking dark. There was nothing took my breath away more than watching people being taken into an El Salvadorian prison. Okay? Nothing I have seen is more unsettling than that shit right there. But then I keep thinking about the run up to that and how, yeah, people are getting fucking arrested and taken out of state and taken out of the country. And it's a war crime, crime against humanity. Deportation is a crime against humanity. There's a reason Donald Trump keeps trying to delegitimize the ICC. There's a reason the ICC hasn't formally charged him. It's because in the United States, they're very hard to arrest. But eventually, we can make them so uncomfortable that they have to leave. Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I mean, think about Elon Musk's Tesla has lost over $800 billion of its $1.1 trillion market cap. That company's done for. And eventually, like I said, they're so keen, they're so vulnerable, which is hilarious. It's almost like he just ran to stay out of jail. Now it's like I don't want to be here. Yeah, well, shit, he goes and golfs most of the time, right? I mean, again, I want to keep pointing out all of those executive orders and presidential orders just could have been bills. Just could have been bills, and they're not. He made crucial fucking errors. There's a lot of people like, oh, they defunded U.S. aid, and it's like temporarily. Oh, he's fired all kinds of people. They got their jobs back with back pay. It's just a massive inconvenience. Donald Trump's just a pain in the ass. He's the most incapable leader ever. You just see it right in front of your fucking face. If there was ever a book of shit not to fucking do, somebody needs to write based on Donald Trump's line of decision making in life what not to fucking do. Because eventually, like I said, I've been saying this regime collapses under the weight of its own stupidity. Um, and that, I want to say soft, happy, sappy shit, love conquers all, justice conquers all. I'm not even saying that shit. I'm saying these motherfuckers are inept. And there's so much going on that when you're inept, you bungle enough and a bunch of people get sick and shit, and eventually this will all crumble. And I know it probably don't feel like that. You probably feel like, oh, he's Teflon Don, he can't get in trouble. And it's like, ah, ah. Not everyone's afraid of him. Apparently your elected officials are afraid. That's something that's going to piss me off forever. Is that a lot of the decisions that are being made in fear, and I'm not about that life. Like I honestly feel like if you're scared, go to church, get the fuck out of the public eye. If one of the things about running for a popularity contest, right? Running for political office is you are going to be constantly in the media, whether you're doing right or wrong. So you had to kind of want it. You had to be willing to accept it as part of the job. You know, it's like Elon Musk wanted to be this rich. I thought she wasn't the kind to go quietly into the night. I thought we were supposed to fight like 18 fucking times. Was she just telling us to fight and she was going to go out to pasture? I wonder the same thing about Joe Biden. One of the things that bothers me about Joe Biden at the end of his regime, he was kind of dismissive of Donald Trump. I'd like to think he's past all that shit. Where's Joe Biden coming out and saying my bad, might have actually misjudged Don here, right? Like think about you're a former fucking president of the United States. Yesterday Donald Trump rescinded the security for your fucking kids. Where's Joe Biden standing up for his kids? Right? Sorry, heard a noise. I like I said, I don't have children, so I can't say it from that perspective, but I can say it from defending my brother, my mother, my home, whatever, my wife, right? I'm coming out, I'm saying something for sure. But the whole silence, hey, part of what I've been saying, never interrupt your opponent while they're making a mistake. It's a matter of national and international security. If the Democrats speak up on shit, they're putting themselves into the investigation, and that slows down justice. And if they stay mum, keep letting them fuck up in the public eye, eventually they fuck themselves, and there's no coming back from it. And again, I've said, my only problem here is that you're betting with people's lives. You're playing a dangerous game. And assuming that Americans are going to get up off their ass and do something, right? And the problem I have with people saying, "Oh, you should have done that. You should have voted." And it's like that's taking the election results at face value. Yeah, you're going to make it unfixable soon. Yeah, it's going to get to a point of no return. You know, in terms of it being darkest before you see the stars, it's pretty fucking dark. Here. Here's some Eat the Rich. Okay. Morning, Kel. I think I might have to go to the eye doctor. Taylor came in here the other day and I was trying to read a menu and I like leaned in real close to read it. And she was like, gotta go to the eye doctor. I'm like, okay. But yeah, listen to you some Eat the Rich in case you ever wonder what it is. And a lot of people have come to me and said, "Hey Jared, I can't get to a protest for reasons XYZ. What else can I do?" And I just wanted you to know that hey, you can do plenty by getting off Facebook threads, IG, get Messenger off your phone, get WhatsApp off your phone, get Twitter off your phone, get Amazon off your phone. We're in the middle of a 40-day Target boycott. So, hey, if you can help it, don't shop at Target. We just came off of a week-long Amazon boycott. We're getting ready to go into a week-long Nestle boycott. And again, you might want to start doing research now about the things that you eat and drink that come from Nestle that you might want to put the kibosh on and find an alternative to that. Okay. Because I think it's among the realest things, right? To, oh, I want to make sure because people are going to ask about the job. Yeah. You stay away from products that have high fructose corn syrup. Absolutely. And you want to make sure you only one thing to be good for. I just wanted you to know, you can win $100,000 with the best college basketball bracket for the NCAA tournament. The perfect bracket gets a trip to Mars. Hope you all heard that. Right? Again, as somebody that has studied math and probability and understands things like radiation to some extent, um, just so everyone knows, the level of radiation on Mars is 5 times that of the highest parts on Earth. We don't have material that can protect us from the most radioactive parts on Earth. What makes you think we're going to go to Mars, which has 5 times the radiation, when our gear can't make it here? Seems pretty stupid. Y'all have a good day.